Hey guys, welcome back to this week's episode of Cooking in College. This week we're going to do something pretty basic. We're going to make a ribeye, but I'm going to amp it up a little bit by making a really simple hollandaise sauce. Intro music, yeah, cool, okay. Alright, so for this episode you're going to want some rosemary, some thyme, garlic, and salt and pepper is the only seasoning you're going to need. And obviously you're going to need your steak. Whatever cut you want. Here I have a beautiful ribeye. You can use New York strip, filet, whatever you want. Everything's gonna apply the same way. Then for our hollandaise sauce, you're gonna want some eggs, butter, a lemon, and that's it. All right, so let's get started with this steak. So what you're gonna wanna do first is make sure you pat the steak dry. We're gonna be searing this steak, and if there's any moisture or water left on there, that's gonna cause a problem when it comes to the searing part of it. So you're gonna wanna make sure it's dry. It's also gonna make the seasoning adhere a little better. So we're just gonna season it liberally with salt and pepper. Now I'm gonna pat it dry again one more time just to make sure we get as much moisture out of there as possible. You're gonna preheat a stainless steel or cast iron pan over medium to high heat, okay? And you're gonna wanna make sure it's all the way preheated before you put the steak on there, okay? That's super important for this. Just putting some vegetable oil. Okay. While that preheats, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on our hollandaise sauce. So you're gonna wanna take a bowl, either a glass or stainless steel, something that's heat proof. And you're gonna wanna drop 3 egg yolks in there. Just the yolks, not the white. So a little trick for this is when you do it, I come over to the sink, crack it over the sink, and try and catch the yolk with the eggshells and pass it back and forth until just the yolk is left. So now we have just the yolk. We're gonna drop this in our bowl. So we've got our egg yolks in there. We're gonna cut this lemon in half. All right, and then into the bowl, we're gonna take the juice of half the lemon. So like I did in the previous episode, we're gonna put our fingers over the cut and squeeze into there and let it just run down our fingers while we catch all the seeds. Because those seeds are really not gonna be pleasant in this. All right, so now that you have your lemon juice in there, you're just gonna whisk this up really quickly. You wanna get some air in there as you whisk. And when I mean that, you're going in big motions like this as you whisk. Once that's all nice and frothy, you're gonna season it with just a small pinch of salt. Give it one more whisk real quick. Now we're gonna set that aside for a minute. Now that our pan is preheated, we're gonna take our steak and we're gonna cook it. So we're gonna make sure to lay your meat away from you because you don't want any of that oil splattering on you. You wanna make sure to press it down too so you get a nice sear on it. We're gonna let that go for about 3 minutes. All right, so it's been about 3 minutes now. We're gonna flip it. As long as I can get a good handle on here. So we had a nice golden brown crust across the top there. Got some little areas that are burned, but that's fine. Now let it go for about another 3 minutes on this side. Then we're gonna tempt it. So it's been about another 3 minutes. Check the other side. It's a little light on the crust, so we're gonna put it back down on that side, but we're not gonna keep cooking. We're gonna pull it off the heat. We're gonna throw in about 3 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna let that get all nice and frothy. While that butter melts, we're gonna throw in our rosemary and thyme. We're also gonna throw in 1 clove of garlic. And tilt the pan so all that butter comes down to the bottom where all the rosemary and garlic is. Then we're gonna start basting it. And that's really gonna start to infuse the steak with the flavor from all our herbs and the garlic. Sometimes I like to kind of rest it on top of the steak too. We're just gonna baste it for about a minute. Alright, so we're gonna pull our steak off. And you're gonna wanna let this rest for a little bit, okay? And let those juices really like soak in. So I'm shooting for about a medium rare on the steak, so that's gonna be about 135 degrees. Or if you don't have a meat thermometer, you're gonna want the steak to feel firm, but it needs to bounce back a little bit. So this is about what you want medium rare to feel like, or look like when you poke it. So we're gonna set that aside. We're gonna keep working on our hollandaise. Alright, so we have our eggs and lemon juice whisked together over here. You're gonna wanna get some sort of saucepan or other pot like this, and you're gonna wanna fill it up with just about 1 inch of water, okay? So what this is gonna be doing is we're gonna be creating what's called a double boiler. So we're gonna be basically boiling this water down here, and that steam that's coming off of it is gonna heat up our bowl here, and that's gonna help us cook the hollandaise and get it where we want it to get. So I'm gonna put that on here and bring it up to a rolling boil. And while that's coming up to a boil, I wanna cut up about a half stick of butter into nice little cubes. Okay, so we're gonna put it on here, and we're starting to whisk immediately and kind of tilt the bowl towards you a little bit. Like I said before, you want to get some air in there. Okay, so it's starting to thicken up a little bit. We're gonna add a tablespoon of butter in there at a time. Okay, our eggs are starting to cook, so we're gonna pull it off and whisk it off heat over here. Really important that if your eggs start to scramble, you want to pull it off the heat. We don't want scrambled eggs. We want this to turn into a kind of sauce. Okay, so at this point, it's a little thicker than I'd like it to be, so I'm just going to take it over the sink, add a little splash of water in there, and keep whisking. And look, that loosens it right back up. You're gonna want this to be a really nice blonde kind of sauce, almost bleach blonde. So we've got all our butter in. It's still a little thick, so I'm gonna add 1 more splash of water. So what we're looking for in our end result here is you want it to be loose but kind of thick, not quite at mayonnaise level, but you also don't want it to be like a syrup almost. So I say we're about there. So we pulled it off heat. I'm gonna add another little pinch of salt. Whisk that in. So what you want in your end result from this is you want it to be super buttery and light. And have just like a little hint of lemon in there. All right, so we've got our sauce and our steak's been resting for a while, so now it's time to plate. Do you think I should leave it whole or cut it?
I leave it whole for presentation.
Side over here. It's so quiet. I didn't know you guys put this part in the video. So we're gonna spoon it over the top. I'm also gonna spoon a little around the edge just for presentation, and if anyone wants to dip their individual pieces in there a little bit more. Make it look nice and pretty. Hopefully you're making this for someone you care about, not just yourself. If you're making it for yourself, go ahead and make it look pretty still, because you do you, you know, we're all about that self-love over here. Okay. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of that rosemary for garnish. Also, real quick before I forget, shout out to editor-in-chief of Due South, Liv George, who grew this rosemary for us on this episode. Y'all should go check out Due South. Okay? Put the rosemary on there and just a little bit more salt over the top. And there is your ribeye. Alright, now we're gonna do our taste test. Come on. Inside, it's more of a medium, but that's fine. That is the perfect steak. Give me a minute. I'm getting choked up over it. When I say you will never want to buy a steak at a restaurant again, I mean it. Like, my mouth is still watering just thinking about the rest of this steak. Oh my goodness, I'm crying, I'm getting all teared up. This is so beautiful. Thank you for coming to this week's Cooking in College. Remember, like and subscribe. Remember, if you make this dish, send it to us on Instagram at JagTVUSA, and we'll select the best ones. Thank you guys. See you guys next week. Okay, so this is my lemon. This is my favorite lemon. It's nice and precious. You know, it's a perfect lemon. It's nice and round and yellow. It's my dad's favorite color, you know, so I really like that too.